Welcome to Dark Horizon Creations. I'm Mike, and this time we're taking a look at the Action Force Kerak action figure by Valaverse. Now, if you hadn't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to my social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get a notification of when I post new content. Well, here's the leader of another really cool faction within the Action Force storyline. Kerak, leader of the Garrison. And I have to tell you guys, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, gee, look, it's an older Bobby Vala action figure. In all seriousness, this is another cool character. Not as cool as the Bone Collector, in my opinion, but still cool nonetheless. Inside the packaging, you see that he has several sets of interchangeable hands. He has a hatchet, a medieval mask. He also includes his sidearm, and he has a very serious looking knife in there as well. On the side panel of the box, you have the Action Force banner and emblem. On this side, you have an image of Kerak ripping someone's head off. On the back, you have your obligatory product shots of Series 1 as well as his file card. And you can cut this out and place it in the slot on his display stand or leave it on the box, however you wish to keep it. Kerak, file name, Richards, Reginald D., primary MOS 11A, infantry officer. Secondary skills 37 Alpha, psychological operations officer. Birthplace, Midlands, Texas. Rank affiliation, Colonel, the Garrison. Reginald Richards was a career Army officer who enlisted not because of a desire to serve his country, but rather because of his own indignation towards his family. Richards grew up in a wealthy home afforded to him by his family's investment and control of a sizable oil refinery in Texas. Richards felt slighted by his family and also believed that he was being left out of the family inheritance. So rather than confront them directly, he unexpectedly enlisted in the Army. His college degree guaranteed him a slot at Officer Candidate School, where he graduated with top honors. Not satisfied with leading an infantry platoon, Richards pursued a secondary MOS, this time in psychological operations. His brutal tactics earned him a reputation in combat, but he didn't stop there, as he used his cunning and imagination to create havoc with his foes back home as well. When the United States fractured, New Colonia sought out Richards based on his exemplary yet vicious military record. Richards took up the mantle of Kerak and led the garrison as a medieval army waging an all-out war of his own and kill anyone who got in his way. He would use the same psychological warfare tactics that he had learned in the army in order to strike fear into the hearts and minds of his enemies and coerce them into showing their hand and letting him have what was in it all at the same time. All right, so let's free this guy from his plastic prison. See what he's all about. And before I open it, there's a really good close-up of the action figure. You can see the detail on the head sculpt. I really like the different skin tones that they've used, the different tints for the flesh tone and things like that, the shadowing, the texturing that they've done on his head sculpt and his beard. That just looks really, really awesome. Really does. And you can see that in the packaging is a hatchet, his medieval mask, a shotgun in a sheath, as well as a giant Bowie knife. And I think that's identical to the one that is included with Sergeant Slaughter. It's just a different color, as well as the interchangeable hands and the display base. Also, you know, I've mentioned this in just about every review that I've done, the packaging. I really, really like the packaging. I appreciate the expense that Bobby spent on this because, you know, this really protects the action figure. I've never seen anything this nice before in an action figure like this. And not only do you have the plastic tray, but you have a top cover here that you'll see me remove in a moment, and then a plastic film that's underneath that. So there's 2 layers of protection for these figures. So if I set it down, you see that it's not taped. You just have to remove it and then peel back the plastic film, and the action figure comes right out. There's no ties, there's no cables, none of that goofy junk that you see with other brands and franchises holding an action figure in place. It's just in the box as it is. And that's really cool. It really is. So here's the figure outside of the packaging. You can see the detail on this dude. There's a Garrison logo on the back of his vest. I really like that. I like this guy, I really do. Looks like he's got on jump boots, and then black and olive drab. Holster with his sidearm. That's a Safari Land holster. Check that out. 1911. Sheath for his Bowie knife, his vest. It's all really cool. Now, Bobby recommends that you either heat these action figures with a hairdryer for around 30 seconds or soak them in really warm tap water for the same amount of time to loosen up the joints, because the joints were affected by temperature variance during transit across the ocean, and that caused them to be really tight and rigid. And if you try to move the figure or display it, there's a risk that you might inadvertently break some of the joints on the action figure, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to take a hair dryer and superheat this, and we're going to come back and see what Kerak's all about. Okay, so I've superheated the joints on the action figure, and let's see that they're all good to go. Just like to move them. Make sure they're loose. The wrist joints, hands in particular, the shoulders. See, this one's still kind of tight. You hear them pop, you know they're popping loose. And the knee joints are the other ones that you have to be particular of, particularly the lower knee joint. I think all of them are okay. They're good to go before we start the review. So again, you can see Kerak up close. Really nasty looking dude. Looks upset about something. Full range of motion in the head sculpt there. Pivot up and down. And let's see. There we go. Forward and lateral movement at the shoulder. In addition to the butterfly joints, you guys can see that. These butterfly joints have a greater range of motion than those on the classified series. Bicep rotation, double jointed elbow, wrist swivel, and pivot. And the upper body and lower body are on 2 different ball joints. Upper torso's on a ball joint, lower torso's on a ball joint. So full range of motion there. Forward and lateral movement at the thigh rotation. Of course, double jointed knee as you just saw. Lower leg rotation. His foot will pivot as well as rotate. So a full range of motion on this action figure. Just really, really cool. And these action figures are extremely stable. I have great difficulty posing the classified series figures and just getting them to stand like this guy is. Action Force, I haven't had a single issue with any of the figures standing on their own. Since I'm talking about standing, here is the Action Force display base that is included with all of the Action Force action figures. There's a slot cut here, so if you would like to cut out your file card and display it, you can. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 pegs for displaying the action figures, and the Action Force logo is engraved in here. Now, there's been some difficulty with some of the figures because the ports on the bottom of their foot was slightly smaller than the peg. There's a couple ways to remedy this. First, if you are into customizing figures, you know what you're doing, you could take a rotary tool, put a sanding drum on it, and put it on the lowest setting and do a couple laps around these pegs to remove some of the material on the outside to make them fit. In doing that, you're going to remove the paint. I'm going to tell you that right now. So you can either repaint that in a gunmetal or not if you choose to do that. But that's what's going to happen if you do this. The other option is to take the action figure, and if the ports are too small, use an X-Acto or something else to try to widen them out. But again, you have to be extremely careful doing that. So we'll see if he will stand on his display base, if I can get his feet to go down. They're not down like they should, but maybe they'll stay for the rest of the video. Now, I said that he has a sidearm. He has a 1911. You guys can see that. That's really cool. Government issue 1911 A1 in a Safari Land holster. How cool is that? Let's look at his other accessories. He does include this Buoy knife. You can see it's got a blood groove cut in there. Really nice looking knife. The rivets are molded into it. Bobby really spared no expense and went all out on these action figures. He didn't cut any corners, didn't do anything cheaply or halfway. You're getting the highest quality in action figures when you buy these things. Extra sets of hands for the interchangeable hand sculpts. Here is his pump shotgun in a sheath. That's really cool. And that will plug into his back. And it's secure. It's in there. It's not going anywhere. He also has this nasty looking tomahawk. But look at the detail on that. That is really awesome. And I don't think that will attach anywhere. That's just something that you can put in his hand. And then here's his mask. Isn't that cool? Roman gladiator mask. That's unreal. That's an awesome looking action figure. All the way around. Guys, I have to tell you, in every toy review or product review that I conduct, every article that I write, every blog that I write, I always give an unbiased opinion of the product. I spend 60 to 100 hours doing research on the product before I ever do a video review. That includes the in-universe background and history of the product. The reason that I'm so familiar with these figures is because I've been working with Bobby as a technical consultant on the comics and action figures, their bios, their file cards, the technical jargon in the comics and things like that. So I took the time to do all the research I could, reading their bios, the backgrounds and things like that, getting all the information so that I was familiar with who I was really trying to assist him with. You know, I didn't just, blatantly go through any of this. All of that aside, I have to tell you, these are the nicest action figures that I have ever put my hands on. And I'm reviewing all of them. I only have one left to review in Series 1, and that's the Swarm Trooper. And out of all the action figures, I've only encountered 2 quality control issues. The riot gear vest, where it wouldn't secure on the side, one of the tabs. And then my Condor action figure didn't include one of the ear guards on the helmet. Other than that, this is a brand new line. Brand new. First wave, first series of figures. Okay? if those two are the only kinds of issues that we encounter, nobody should say anything, you know. And I'm not even upset with Valaverse about that. I'm more upset that somebody was too busy being on TikTok and not paying attention to what they were doing in the assembly line. In all honesty and in all seriousness, these are the nicest action figures you could ever own. They really are. And this is so much more awesome and fun than G.I. Joe ever was, because you have all these different factions, all these different characters, and you know, the tie-in comic to go along with it. There's so much to look forward to in this line. There really is. And these characters, I mean, look at these figures. How they are so lifelike, so realistic. You know, it's like looking at a little person. And, you know, I'm just extremely grateful to be able to have these figures. You know, thankful to Bobby for sending these out to me. And also, I've been able to play such a small role, you know, in the Action Force franchise. You know, I love the story. I can't wait to see more of it, particularly the Steel Brigade and Eclipse. I love those characters. I really do. But I really do like the Bone Collector. I like Kerak. I'm interested to see how they develop, where their story goes. If you don't own these action figures, you need to go to Valaverse.com right now, order those action figures, and order the comics to go along with them to catch up on the story so that you can become part of the action.